Dun, 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 dun. Hey, sweetheart. Um, so there was that live update thing that I did earlier in the week, and what did I just? Oh, what the fuck ever. Oh well, I'm doing the med vlog tonight apparently. I'd mentioned that my friend JC had reopened his piercing shop in downtown Ann Arbor, and unfortunately, he had to close back down. And the reason he closed down again, well, the reason he closed in the first place is because there were some accusations that he had said some white supremacist BS to a young lady who came in to get pierced. And I've got some mixed feelings about this. I do consider him a friend still, and I'm going to go on to my mixed feelings thusly. First off, she has she has altered her story just slightly, but just odd enough ways. I know that we don't remember every incident perfectly every time we recall it to others. At least, the average person does not. In rare cases of perfect eidetic memory, even um, there is still a little bit of margin for error to take into account. Here and there about the specifics. As it may be muddled by our own personal feelings. In fact, there are people who claim that true eidetic memory doesn't even exist. It's just better at it's just a person who's better at recalling the facts than average. So, but still, the ways that her story has changed a little bit every time she recalls it, that alone is enough to make me question exactly what was said. At the same time, I don't doubt JC said something that was taken in the worst possible way. And I don't doubt that he said something that set her off because, he is a bit right wing, which may come as a surprise to some people, but being a friend of mine. But at the same time, he's a libertarian, and he's a few years older than me. I'm 38, he's 44. So he's a libertarian, and I have more patience for him than I do for most other libertarians because, when you actually talk to him about certain topics, he does, agree that, that a good society is one that takes care of those who are unable to work and do for themselves. That's the most prominent thing I can think of that sets him apart from your typical, Ayn Rand fanboy who wants to pave the rainforests and this, that, and the other thing. He Uh, but but yeah, I don't doubt that he said something. So, I'm not calling this young lady's experience completely into question. I just, I just, it seems that she's taken this in the worst possible way, based on some things that a couple other people have been able to find out about the whole situation. That she kind of has this idea in her head that she's going to become some kind of big name activist, and she had to look for something that she could blow out of proportion that is just true enough that you know that it would be fairly easy for some people to believe. And you can't falter for trying, but at the same time, there are so much better targets from this area, even, that she could have taken a task for this kind of shit. I'm not going to go into details on, things I've heard JC say that, I feel, at the very worst, it's something that, could just easily be construed in the worst possible way, because that's not necessary at this time. And, on a personal note, while coming out of most other mouths, I would probably be giving this young lady the benefit of the doubt. At the same time, I've known JC for the area of about 10 years now. I know according to Facebook, I've been Facebook friends for about 8 years. Though he since deleted his personal account. Then what happens? I pick up that pill. I know I've been going into the shop about as long as it's been open, when it was still up at the old Cat's Meow location. If you're at all familiar with downtown Ann Arbor, basically it was about, from the current location, it would be about 4 blocks up Liberty, technically on State, but you go up Liberty and you make a slight left onto State, and then it would be up a good flight of stairs to the second floor. The Get Up Vintage used to be on the 3rd floor of the same building, but they've since moved down to the ground level where they get better foot traffic. But yeah, the Cat's Meow is a soul punk boutique that used to be on the 2nd floor of that building. And they survived basically until Hot Topic moved into the mall and drove them out of business because, it's the same thing for cheaper. No, it's a lower quality grade thing for cheaper. Why don't you people understand? Yeah, that place was there from 1982 until at least the Ann Arbor location was there from 82 until, I want to say, just after Scott and I moved to Rochester Hills. So that would have been 2002. Yeah, so it was there about 20 years or something. Then what happened? But yeah, so I've been going into the shop basically as long as it's been around. And on but yeah, so I went to go see JC last night because he did do the new lower lip classic center libret. I've been wanting that just because well, I used to have a Royale, also known as depending on where you are and the social circles you run in. Could be called a jazz beard, could be called a soul patch. It's one of those arrangements of facial hair or facial adornment of many kinds that has, at least 3 different goofy ass names, much like the beauty mark piercing. Depending on where you live, depending on who social circuits you run into, you may know it as a Monroe, you may know it as a Marilyn, you may know it as a Madonna or a Crawford, as in Cindy, though her mole, I believe, is lower. No, I might be thinking of somebody else's mole, but yeah, it's got about a dozen goofy ass names. But here everybody knows Lower Center Labret. So then what happened? So yeah, I saw him just yesterday. After I got my ring back from Abracadabra, I could have asked him to fix it, but he doesn't really do glue with his jewelry, and this was one that was kind of set with glue, to begin with. So, but then what happened? So yeah, he was at the shop and was basically papering up the windows again. And I'd say we had a talk, but it was mostly just me listening. And, if it was coming out of anybody else's mouth, I would give it a second guess and question whether or not I wanted to keep them around. But, it's coming from JC, so I understand where he's coming from on a more personal level. Like I said, we've been friends for about a decade. And then what happened is, so I'm hearing him, and I'm hearing someone who is genuinely not racist or sexist or homophobic. I hear someone who genuinely does believe that all people are created equal and thus should be treated equal, and he doesn't understand certain things, and in that he's feeling like he no longer really has a place, definitely not in this area where, it is. The Ann Arbor Ypsilanti area has a history of radical activism, but it's gone from radical to center liberal, if you ask me, honestly. And it feels like he doesn't feel he even really necessarily has a place in this world anymore. Honestly, if I thought it would do any good, I'm afraid for him, honestly. It breaks my heart to see somebody that broken down, and especially a personal friend. I'm afraid for him. And, in about a month, it had been a year since I lost my friend Cinnamon. And I really hope I don't lose another. I really hope I don't lose another friend. And granted, in her case, it was on a fast-acting and aggressive form of colon cancer. and she was vegan. So if you think that had anything to do with it, you're wrong. Um, yeah, cancer doesn't care about your lifestyle as much as it cares about, just destroying people. So, um, yeah, I really hope, because he was talking about suicide statistics that have been um, gradually going up amongst heterosexual white middle-aged men who, depending on your statistics, may count men as young as him as middle-aged, may not count it until about 10 years older, thereabouts. And yeah, I don't doubt what he's been reading. I would like to know what's gone, what is behind these things he's been reading. Like, first off, like to know who's been conducting the studies, and I'd like to know what methodology they're using and what they're, especially like what they're considering middle-aged and all that. But at the same time, I hear him talking about this, and I'm afraid for him. I'm genuinely afraid for him, and I'm sure there are going to be people who will say, "Oh, he brought it on himself," and if you didn't, open his fat mouth, and that's one thing. I was there at the reopening about a week ago. Yeah, a week ago today, honestly. I was there. I was interviewed for the Michigan Daily, which would be the student paper at University of Michigan, and last I heard, various things were taken out of context for the article. I have yet to read it, though, but that's another story for another time. Especially since I have yet to read it. I mean, let's be honest. Then what happened? So yeah, and I said to one of the oh, there they are. Oh, please tell me this is one of the things that I'm looking for. I don't think so. Okay, whatever. So I said to one of the young people who was, there for the article, that JC's biggest crime is he's got something lacking in terms of filter from brain to mouth. He says it, or he thinks it, he says it, and the consequences will come as they may. And that, in my experience with JC, is probably his biggest crime. He's he said right in front of me that, well, I'm rich, I don't give a shit about poor people. But at the same time, you could infer from his tone that he was being sarcastic, and then, like, right out of the next breath is, that's right out of the next breath, he's talking about how his father, who lost his vision in 85, is on Medicare and Social Security disability, and is, struggling himself, and various things that, it's like, it's clear from context that he's being sarcastic. But if somebody had only heard, that first part before, he drops the sarcasm and adopts a more serious tone, you're going to, hear this and think, this guy is horrible. And that's the JC I know. Is he's one of the most laid back assholes. And I've said this to him, so So if you think you're gonna be white knighting, trust me, he and I are friends. I'm in an episode of The Modified World. I think it's still up. It was demonetized maybe about 2 months later on account of LGBT content. So I'm on an episode of The Modified World, and I can link it below. If I forget to, please remind me. But yeah, I'm in an episode of that, and I brought it up, making the episode anyway in the first place, and then what happens is so I suggested making it because I'd been wanting to commemorate my my chest surgery, and with my dermal piercings here. They've both been placed differently since the original piercings. The original piercings were one here and then one here, but this one fell out first because, it's one of those you live and you learn things. You think it's close enough to, the tighter chest skin. And this was such an unusual placement too that it's like, yeah, you don't know until you try, right? So the original was here, and this one wiggled out first. And first it was placed back by Josh, who I'm actually going to leave out what I could say about Josh, but so it was first placed back by Josh, and then what? Well, then it came out again, and it was just, we agreed, then Pierre was in the shop, and, we're just like, you know what, it's done. It's been put back once. It's come out again. Now it doesn't want to be there. Then JC, maybe about a month later, after this came out, we put it back up here, and then this one that was here came out, but looking at it a little bit more closely, yeah, that's where there's some that's where there's a fold in the scar, so it was probably thinner than it looked at the time, but it didn't come out until I want to say just before the shop closed in August for a few months. So yeah, then what happened was crap and stuff to start. So yeah, then sorry, I'm just doing a quick cleansing stage. I'm gonna be placing them in the cabinet sometime this coming week. Then what happened? So yeah, then we JC placed it back in the new location. So we've got them a little closer together than they initially were, but it's around the same placement that I initially wanted and still want, of course. So then what happened? So yeah, that was put back on Saturday, and this was done on Saturday, later in the day, after I got back from the Sprint store. But that was, I'd mentioned something about that at the time, after I got my phone back. So I'd already talked about the Sprint store thing. What time? Oh, we've been going about 25 minutes. It looks. So yeah. So yeah, I still have yet to read the actual article that came of it, but it sounds like something I said was taken out of context by Michigan Daily. I don't know if I was quoted or not, but they did take my name. They did take the spelling of my name. So then what happens? But yeah, then Sunday, there was apparently this huge-ass protest while I was in the ER with the kidney stone, or I'm not sure if I've passed it, but I've got an appointment coming up. Oh shit, I gotta go there on Monday. I gotta figure out how I'm getting to the West Ann Arbor clinic for that. Oh god, that's gonna be early too. Worst case, I call for an A ride. Oh shit, can I call for an A ride on Sunday? I'll figure it out. Yeah, it's too late in the day to call now. Okay, well, that's what I forgot to do all day yesterday. That I swore there was something I needed to do, but oh well. Live and you learn, right, kids? So, then what happened was, so yeah, I'm in the hospital, with a kidney stone, which I'll find out on Monday if I've passed it or not. That's gonna be entertaining. I'm, for the next however long until it passes, at least, I'm on, as this is a med vlog, might as well give you a pointless med update. Where did it go? No. There we go. Temsulicin, 0.4 milligram capsules. Take 1 capsule by mouth once daily, 30 of them. So a 30-day supply, no refills. And it looking like this. Yeah. I was told it's a diuretic that sort of, gives some expansion to the ureter and bladder, and maybe not the bladder, but the urethra definitely. Is it the urethra or is it the ureter? Or is the ureters what go from the kidneys to the bladder? I don't know. I'll figure it out eventually. Then again, I'm not a urologist, right? So then what happens? So yeah, I'm in the hospital with a kidney stone, and I called JC from there because, I know at the very least he would be able to, so I don't have a working phone, and, at the very least, I know he would be able to get a hold of Pierre, who lives literally around the corner from me. Pierre's another piercer who was working at Pangea. So yeah, I knew at the very least, JC would be able to get a hold of Pierre, or at the very least give me Pierre's number. So if JC was unable to, I would be able to get a call from, or I would be able to get a call to somehow, get a call to Pierre to, come pick me up from the U of M hospital ER entrance. And I got signed out at around the time JC was closing up the shop on Sunday. He said he was going to be there till 8, and he was. But yeah, I heard there was some kind of protest demonstration there in front of the shop, people banging on the kettle drums, or at least the, maybe not kettle drums. No, kettle drums is a specific thing. We're talking about the drumming on those 5-gallon barrels. Probably from Kilwins, just because they're right up, down the street about a block. And people chanting, insisting that he's racist and homophobic and sexist, and like I said at the beginning of this, if this were anybody else, I would give the accusers the benefit of the doubt, especially if I didn't know that person. I would give the accusers the benefit of the doubt, but because I know him, I know, like many straight men about, our age, so, like I said, he's about 6 years older than me, so we're in they're about the same age bracket, younger end of Generation X-ish. There are, who would say, who would make certain, comments that you wouldn't necessarily want to make in front of, the women themselves, or, or something, but, you'd say it a little bit more comfortably around other men, maybe around, women you felt were close enough friends, and who, understood you didn't mean anything, poorly by this, you're just making a little off-color remark that, is, and trust me, like even around myself, who he's always, known and regarded as another man. Um, and he knows I'm trans. It's like I don't even think it first came out, to him at the shop until yeah. I was getting my nostril redone by Pierre, and I was asking Pierre, and this was like, oh god, this was about 8 7 8 years ago. No, about 8 maybe 9 years ago, like just before Scott and I moved to Lansing. So I was getting my nostril redone, and then maybe a few days before we moved to Lansing, I got the beauty mark. But and it was when I was asking, it was after I got the beauty mark done. I was asking Pierre if he might be able to do any. Ow, damn it! I just hit him. Funny. I asked if he might be able to do anything about what happened with my nipples as far as piercings go, and Pierre was just curious, like oh hey, what am I working with here? Just curious, like basically like, why does it look like this? And I said, it's just female to male chest reconstruction. So, and he says, oh okay, I thought that might have been it, but I didn't want to make any assumptions, and that's great. And like I said, Pierre's been there about like at least 8 or 9 years, and he considers JC one of his best friends. And I know Pierre identifies very strongly with his American Indian heritage. I forget which tribe, but I believe he was born in New Orleans area. No, I think he was. Originally from Louisiana, but I know he doesn't really claim any French heritage. But that would then I might be getting him confused with somebody else who was raised in Canada who also worked there briefly, because I know talking about I remember having a conversation around the same time. It might have been somebody else working there, but it might have also been Pierre, who said that they were raised in Canada and grew up with metric. Not sure. But yeah, Pierre took a couple of years off, lived in Grand Rapids briefly, worked at a shop there, came back to Ipsy, and worked at Pangea again. But yeah, like so yeah, like the first time I came into the shop, like they knew me as male. Like yeah, they took the picture of my ID and everything, but like honestly, it seems they didn't actually read it, because they just wanted to make sure, like, in case anything were to happen, or at least didn't read it beyond the the date of birth and all that. So they've always known me by the name I've gone by, even before that name was legal. They have always known me by the gender I've identified myself to them as, even before that was legal, even before I came around to fully post-op as I am now. So and JC did my foreskin piercing on my metoidoplasty. And as best as he's been able to research amongst the piercers, he is the only piercer he knows of he personally talks to daily, or regularly enough anyway, who's done a foreskin on a metoidoplasty. And one of the few he's aware of. So, I mean, yeah, you can say, oh, well, of course he's gonna, treat you with respect when you're in the shop, because, your money's involved there. I I kind of hesitate to say this, but JC has taken very little money from me over the years. Like there have been times when so for the dermals, for that episode, The Modified World, because now full disclosure, I as I said earlier, it was my idea to do it as an episode of The Modified World. And my thinking was, it would be inspirational to many people. I'd watched enough of his piercing videos. He likes a good story to go along with the piercings that he does for a video. He really likes a good story, and in fact he even prefaced that that part of the video, and it's a long ass video too. Like the first third, he's talking about this woman that he knows about in the area who he'd seen selling a ground cover, which is this, paper that the homeless sell. And sometimes it's volunteers for the homeless, but he thought she was a volunteer. And then, he doesn't see her for a while. And then he sees her again and he finds out she's actually been living out of her van the whole time he's known her, and this, that, and the other thing. So, it kind of starts off on a downer. And then there's, my part, which is like, the middle third, which is, kind of uplifting and inspirational. And he talks about, and he prefaces this with rites of passage and marking a new stage in your life and all that. And then the last third is just him and his apprentice Kat, who is Jewish. Again, it's like you say, I see people saying he's anti-Semitic, and he's his apprentice is Jewish and identifies with that part of her heritage. And I don't know how devout she is, but she's a very sweet young lady. But then what happens is so yeah, like I proposed the video because I knew he liked a good story, for the piercing videos. I knew this was like an unusual enough piercing placement for dermals. You see dermals around the chest area a lot. I've occasionally seen a dermal like up by the eye or something. You do see dermals on the chest a lot, but the placement by scar tissue, that was what I was thinking would be unusual enough to make a really good story for it. And so I wanted it to be inspirational. I wanted it to be a good clickbaity kind of story for the for the video. And I was thinking, okay, like would we do it for the cost of jewelry? And he's like, oh yeah, that for that kind of thing, I'd probably make up, until they demonetize me. Until they demonetize me, I'll probably make up, in hit traffic with the AdSense, almost what I'd make for the piercing fee. So yeah, sure, whatever. And they did demonetize that video in a couple months, and I came in, maybe 2 months later to just shoot the shit, and it was just early enough in the winter because this was done October of 2017. Yeah, a little bit after the 10th anniversary mark, so a few months later. But and I come in, I want to say it was like December or early January, and he says, "Hey, great news! Yeah, they've demonetized your video." But yeah, then what happens is god damn, how long has this been going? Oh god, I talk a lot. So yeah, like we had settled that the cost of jewelry, so dermal anchors, I was initially thinking a surface bar, but we decided to go with dermal anchors instead, just figuring that it would be more secure than a dermal bar under a huge ass band of scar tissue. And there's the fact that all of his surface anchors were either just going to be like a little bit too big or a little bit too small. He'd have to make something brand new for a surface bar right there. And he knows my funds are limited. So dermal anchors, we decided that would be like the most economical place option, and also the more secure placement. Plus if because scar tissue, it feels thicker, and there are reasons for that. I'm not really good at explaining, but basically like the structural integrity of the skin of scar tissue is weaker. So if the surface bar had started whittling out, that would have all had to come out. I would have lost the whole thing. And then I'd go with dermal anchors later to bring the positive attention to that space that I wanted to, because at that point I'd already been dealing with, going around topless and people are staring at the scar across my chest. So I'm like, I want to do something to commemorate this. I've kind of, at that point that where I was able to, think about getting a piercing. This nipple, it kind of like you can kind of see it. What the surgeon had revised here with that, but it's like almost complete. It's for all practical purposes, for the purposes of piercing, that's completely flat. This one, it's, I don't know. Oh god, that gets flatter and flatter every year. So yeah, at that point last year, I'd kind of given up on the nipples getting done. I do want tattoos on that, though. I do want to get them tattooed somehow. I'm not sure how. I'm open to ideas if you have any suggestions. I've tossed around the idea of spider webs, but then again, I kind of want spider web sideburns tattooed on. I do. I just, like, I hate having facial hair because I'm prone to blackheads where I've got facial hair. Which is one of the reasons I wanted this, because I'm prone to blackheads where I get facial hair. But I did have the Royale for a while, but then, like I said, the blackhead's under the facial hair, so I'm like, you know what? I'll just get that there, and I've been wanting that for a bit. But, I don't want to be covered in spider webs either. Oh god, it's 9. But yeah, like, he'd quoted me, the price he'd quoted me at the time, before we even got done with the video, and I came in there with I think I came in intending to pay part of it with cash, part of it with out of my bank account. Can't remember if I do think I've done it like that for one other thing before. And then what wasn't? But yeah, like after the cameras go off and everything, and we're signing me out to for the piercing, for the jewelry fee. He quotes me a good $50 less than the initial quote, and I asked him like a couple times, "Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Because I thought it was gonna be," and then he says, no, trust me. So yeah, like, I know for a fact, like, you can say, oh, well, he just, of course he's gonna treat you with respect and while you're in the shop because he just wants your money. Well, at the same time, if that was the case, why would he be underselling himself to me? Because, like, if it was a matter that, oh, he just wants your money, he's got a funny way of showing it. So, and if you want to say, and plus, that little under a week he was open this month. He the 30th through, I want to say, the 5th was the final day he was actually open, because I was in there a couple other times. Yeah, like, with so yeah, when he reopened on the 30th, I was able to this was before everything had gone down with my phone, and basically I'm because I had to replace the phone and they wanted $50 for that, non-negotiable. They wouldn't attach to my bill for later. They wanted $50 up front to pay for the replacement phone. But so that was the day before. So that was done. Yeah. 2 days before. That was done 2 days after the phone. The phone thing was done 2 days after I got this done. So when I got this done, I could have afforded the jewelry. Where'd y'all live? I'm not smoking. I'm doing sage. And plus, in Michigan, medical marijuana was recently passed as not. It's been medical for about 10 years now, but it recently passed that it's legal for recreation, which I think is starting in January. But even so, this is not I don't smoke. I don't smoke marijuana. It just doesn't do anything for me. I've had people offer to buy a medical marijuana card off of me, but because I guess I just look like somebody who smokes weed. Um, but I don't. I don't, and I don't have a medical card because one, I don't think Medicare covers it. Um, and two, if it doesn't do anything, if it doesn't get me high, I don't trust it to do anything about my back pain. So, but yeah, this is just sage. This is goddamn white sage. I'm burning it in a thing. It's a cleansing thing. If you tuned in about half an hour earlier, I was doing my stones. But what was I saying about JC? Yeah, so yeah, when I got this done with JC, on opening day after I got back from the Sprint store, before we had ruled out that my phone, before we ruled that my phone was completely broken, that was to be the old one, of course. I offered to, pay the, I want to say, Libret stud is normally like even, I want to say a Libret stud is normally about 35 before the, before accounting for the head. I want to say that a head on, with the synthetic opals that he does, I want to say those average around 20 for the head alone. So I was I was expecting to drop about $50 for this. And, he says straight up to me, your money's no good here. We don't want it. We don't need it. And this is after he does the piercing. So obviously, I just, like I said, if it was anybody else, if it was anybody else, especially if it was somebody I didn't know, my, and somebody else was making, and somebody was making these accusations against him that they have been for the last, since August, I would be giving the accusers the benefit of the doubt. I would. But in the case of JC, even the little, logical explanations, that they would use, some of the logical explanations that I have used, in similar, sort of things. And I say similar because, I am, closer to the accusers than I am to the accused, and all that. And but yeah, like in similar enough situations, like like let's say Kavanaugh, like yeah, you can say that I am totally giving his accusers the benefit of the doubt because most of what he's said to defend himself, it doesn't line up. It doesn't line up with the facts. And yeah, like I would not be at all surprised, of course, like his accusers, they come forward at this specific time, due to some amount of political motivation, but that's not to say that it's trumped up, that it's a trumped up accusation. That's not to say that, they're making it up. I don't doubt for a second that they're telling the truth, as they've experienced it. But yeah, like I said, because it's JC and I have known him for so long, and there's so much about these accusations against him that just don't make any sense. And the logic, that people can use, he, of course he's gonna, do that, while you're in the shop, because, there's money on the line. He's gotta get his bills paid, right? And it's like, well, yeah, if he's got to get his bills paid, there's certainly not from me, because, he's in the whole 8 or 9 years I've been going into the shop with any amount of regularity, and it had been around a year or so before then. The whole time I've been going into the shop, and I've known JC on some level, he has taken, and considering all of the piercings that I've gotten done at the shop, he's taken so little money from me. So yeah, the septum, that was done by JC, and we did it using an older piece of jewelry that I had for years. Yeah, he did make kind of a little snarky comment about how so yeah, we done it with this one, but we put a new head on it just to, go with stuff. So yeah, he did make a snarky little comment about how this ring is a little bit beaten up and stuff. And, at the same time, it's like, yeah, I had known him at a time that, he should have known that I would just take that kind of thing in stride. So that's probably what he figured. And plus, the important thing was that I wanted it done, and I'm willing to, hold out for a nicer piece of jewelry in the future. And that's how we got with this thing. So Pierre did this. In fact, it occurred to me a few days ago that everything on my nose and lips right now, that was done at Pangea. My dermals were done at Pangea. My foreskin, of course, that was done at Pangea. And yeah, JC is, I've seen people on Twitter when this whole thing started back in August accuse him of being transphobic. And again, I'm a trans person. I've been a client at the shop for about 8 or 9 years. I've known JC that whole time. My second piercing done there. My first two were done by Pierre. So I had my nostril redone. I initially had it done at, just this little place. I didn't even remember the name. I kind of remember the location, but not the street names, but I'd recognize the building if I saw it again. So I initially had this done, I want to say 2003, 2004 in Cadillac, Michigan. God damn, that's right. I was living with Bo and Katie at the time. So I initially had this done in Cadillac, Michigan, but I took it out for reasons I don't know. Oh, right. I had it taken out just before my my chest surgery. And I didn't put it back in, probably because I got a bug up my ass about how, it's, at least in India, it's traditionally a feminine piercing. I was living across the street from a Chinmaya Hindu temple at the time. In fact, this little dish, this little brass dish that I'm burning sage in, I was able to dumpster dive this from one of my neighbors at the apartment complex I was in. And it's, can we see here? Yeah, it's, you can tell this is from one of my Hindu neighbors. In fact, I've had a couple of friends, just kind of like give me a ribbing about this because, it is technically a swastika, but it's a Hindu swastika. You can tell from the design that this is very clearly a Hindu design. And like I said, I dumpster dived it from ostensibly Hindu neighbors. And I got a couple other things from that dumpster dive too. I did, and I kind of regret this now because I could have used it for sampling. I left behind the audio cassettes of traditional Hindu music. But, I've had a couple friends give me a bit of a ribbing about this, and oh shit, I'm going on an hour now. Because, it's a swastika, but, it's the Hindu ones. And, I use it for sage. I use it for, I basically use it for incense. That's pretty much always what I've used it for is, for incense. It's not like, anything, but, yeah, if you want to accuse JC of, being, transphobic or homophobic, he's not, he's known I was trans, or at least Pierre's known I was trans, since my second visit to the shop. And let's see, JC and I had each other added on Facebook for forever. I would, you know, I was very unprecious about it for the longest time, the whole being trans thing. And then what happened is and he's just always accepted me as a gay guy. Like, as far as JC's is concerned, if you're trans, your sexuality is probably about as, varied as it is with cisgender people. So yeah, there's that. He's never said anything homophobic to me, even about other people. He's mentioned that his high school sweetheart is now out as a lesbian, or at least living as a lesbian, and and it's one of those things that, like, amongst other friends, you can say, oh yeah, so and so, I'm a little disappointed because I was attracted to them, but they're happy now, so and even if you don't explicitly say it, there's this understanding that that yeah, you can joke about it. I mean, according to him, he jokes about it with her sometimes, that and they've been good friends since she came out, and so yeah, he's been a good friend to me, and it sounds like his current plan is he's gonna basically move out of the area, probably back to Oklahoma, which is where he's from. He's had this dispute with his father over how much, if any, Native heritage, is on that side of his family, for some years, but he's kind of open to the he's definitely, like, it's one of those things where, like, his father claims that they've got some significant native blood on that side of the family, and JC is saying, where's the proof? And I brought it up in the car ride home from the hospital. But just wait, you get the blood test done to prove your father wrong, and it comes back, like, on his side there's like 1/16 of it somewhere, and he's gonna rub that in your face, and he's like, yeah, he can do that, but it doesn't matter, a hill of beans, and and then I can, then he can have a Merry Christmas for all I care. So yeah, it's like, I am, though. I'm afraid for him. I really wish it didn't have to come to this, and honestly, it's it's quite a thing there, isn't it? It's like, and see, it's like, I still see people on, like, goading him on Twitter, demanding that he prove a negative, basically. And, like, prove you aren't, where's this proof that you aren't, racist and homophobic and xenophobic and all that. And I'm like, and I said to somebody just last night, you're literally asking him to prove something impossible. And I don't for a minute believe that you think he can do this, so you're knowingly telling him, that he should prove something impossible before you believe him. So, where's your good faith, in this argument here? And and I hate to sound, cynical and pessimistic, but unfortunately, I think, like I said, in the case of this one young woman, she does seem to be, trying to basically just make a name for herself as an activist, and she's picked, one of the easier targets she can to do it. She's picked somebody who is known in his communities to have a low filter from brain to mouth. Somebody who is known to his communities to be a right center libertarian, he's a bit more moderate, and centrist on some things. He does identify as a libertarian, though. He's a bit more right wing on other things. And there's things where, as an anarcho socialist, he and I are in agreement on some things. So it's like clearly, he's just picking, the one that, when he identifies himself as a libertarian, he's just going with the ideology that he feels he identifies with the most. But like many people, he's a lot more complex than a simple term can, like a simple term can convey. So, but yeah, like I see a man who is hurting and who just seems so down on life in general right now. And I'm gonna be waiting for him to make the announcements before I say anything about what he said to me about the future of the shop. But yeah, I mean, I know I've got maybe 60 subscribers top, so nowhere near his audience, but still, it's like I see him hurting, and I hurt for him, and like I said, if taken out of context, if he were, or if he were anybody where, if he were anybody I didn't know as well as I do, and he's one of those guys that you really got to take everything he says into context. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Like, take it into context of not only like what he's saying and who he's saying it to, but take into context what he said before and whether or not that lines up with with how you wish to take what he's saying. And yeah, he's evolved somewhat over his life. We all do. But he's definitely evolved his positions throughout his life, as we all do. And so yeah, he's refined things, he's changed his mind at times. And but yeah, like, you got to take him into context. And when he's one of those guys where you can't just take you can't just take his context by the immediate context. You got to take it all in. And some people are just like that. They're going to they're going to be easily misunderstood without all of that taken into consideration. And yeah, I'm scared for him. I've been trying to take my mind off of it this last most of this last hour and some by talking about other things he said and reminiscing about good things he said and done for me and done for other people. And I'm scared for him. And the man I saw yesterday as he was changing out my jewelry for a slightly longer post, just because, well, it's getting caught on my teeth now, but it really needed a bit more room because of the lower lip placement. So it really needed a little bit more room. Oh yeah, that's looking much better now than it was yesterday before I went in. But yeah, so yeah, like, I saw him yesterday when he was papering up the windows again, and after he did that, he changed out the post on my librette stud, and he was scared, like at like, not just for his immediate personal safety, but for his well-being in general. He'd been talking some years about maybe emigrating to the Czech Republic, and just he he'd been thinking last few years about maybe retiring to the Czech Republic and, just getting a house out in the middle of nowhere and, yeah, live in a shack, poop in an outhouse, doesn't even want electricity or anything, and he's not even sure he's going to be able to do that because of what comes up when you do a pull up the search results for his name. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty sure his current plan, before any statement he releases on the modified world, I'm pretty sure his current plan is, he's probably thinking of going back to Oklahoma, maybe. Maybe at least just live closer to his dad. I know his dad's not doing so great. And after that, who knows? He yesterday before he got to the shop, he said that he'd been sleeping a lot for the last couple days, which is and I grew up with my aunt. She's got bipolar disorder. She was diagnosed in the 60s, before maybe just after she left high school, saying that that she was diagnosed back when it's called manic depression. And so yeah, I know when somebody's really depressive, they will sleep. That is just an easy way to cope. In fact, I slept for 12 hours. I kind of woke up when my phone went off and some of the Domino's. I think they're crediting my, I think they're giving me like some credit toward free food, which would be nice because they did it once this week already. Haha. So if I get 2 free orders in a week, that would be amazing. So then what happens is as for me, I've been like running around like, I've been running around like a crazy person this last week myself, just not just dramas with the, not just keeping tabs on the dramas with the shop I've been going to almost 10 years now, and my friends who are involved in that, but all this things with the I'm still backed up on orders from my shop with the buttons because like these buttons, not like sewing buttons, but because there was a good couple weeks where I just was like pretty much housebound from back pain. I was able to do a bare minimum of things, and just all of the moving around that I have to do to get buttons done and get packages together, it was just like I couldn't really do it. I spent most of that 2 weeks on my back, and I'm still backed up on orders. And I'm getting them out as I can. I'm lucky if I can get out to the post office for those twice a week. But, you do what you do, right? You got to do what you got to do, and you can do it when you do, and you do it when you can do it. So, but yeah, I found myself sleeping, 12 hours. I woke up, oh God, it was about 3:30. I went to bed at 3:30. I woke up at 3:30 this afternoon. So yeah, I slept about 12 hours. I woke up briefly when the phone rang. But yeah, like the man I saw last night was a man who was depressed and scared, and not necessarily like scared for his own personal safety, though that was a part of it. He'd somebody called the shop while I was there, even though that it was closed, for business anyway. Somebody called the shop while I was there, and he's saying, no, we're closed, and he's like, well, we're closed because when somebody says that they're gonna meet you outside your store and put a bullet in your head, you don't want to come back to it. And so yeah, there is a matter where part of how he's scared, is about his personal safety. I'm not going to deny that. He's going to, say it. He's said it before on the Modified World, but uh, taking into context things he was saying last night, he's also scared about like where his life is going to go from now. He doesn't know what's going to happen. Like I said, he was talking about suicide statistics for people in his demographic, basically, and I'm scared. If I thought it would do any good, I would. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I really don't. And I really don't want to lose another friend like this. Another one so young, relatively speaking. And, I didn't have the same friendship with him that I had with Cinnamon. And but it hurts, it hurts when you see a friend in trouble and there's nothing you can do about it. And I'm scared for him. I really am. But I don't know what to do. Like, the majority of my experience with, that sort of depression is as an outsider. And I I don't know like what the best thing to do about it would be. I don't know who to call and talk to about it because most of my friends who are local bought into the negative hype. They don't know him, they haven't him as closely as I have. So they've bought into a lot of negative hype. And again, as I've said many times before, this hour and 12 in, if he was anybody else saying this, I would be given pause. I would give some benefit of the doubt to his accusers. At the same time, I've known him for years and years. I'm able to take a lot of it into context and, and understand, the complexities of his thoughts. And, sometimes he just says things just to get it out and, think about it later. And sometimes he says things just to play devil's advocate. Sometimes he just wants to give other people food for thought. And unfortunately, that kind of, that kind of habit can bite you in the ass. And I'm seeing the worst of it right now. I'm seeing the worst of how that can bite somebody in the ass right now. And I don't like it. And I've seen similar enough accusations come from other people against another friend of mine. This would be Galina Kraskova. And fortunately for Galina, her primary income is she is a university professor. I believe she teaches Latin. I thought she taught high school Latin. I don't know why I thought she taught high school Latin. It must have had something to do with various stories about her students. And when I said to her, like in person at the Polytheist Leadership Conference about 5 years ago now, when I said to her that I thought she taught high school Latin, I also thought she was bisexual, but that I admit I just thought that was because I admit I just thought that because I know her husband is. And but yeah. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So yeah, I thought Galena caught high school Latin. She said, "Oh God, no, I I don't have the patience for high school kids." I was like, "But your stories." She's like, "No, these are college kids." Oh God. But yeah, yeah, knowing that college kids are, you know, not all that much smarter than high school kids, that kind of made me feel a little bit better about my life choices. But that's another story for another time. It's like, but the story for now is that Galena's had accusations of being, alt right and racist and homophobic and transphobic, and you know, again, if this were anybody else that these people were talking about, I would give the accusers the benefit of the doubt. If this were somebody I did not know in these contexts, um, and yeah, like Galena's issue, like I don't even know where people are coming from when they make these accusations about her, um, because um, she doesn't really say any of those things. Um, she does have some friends who do, and that's damned if I know why she keeps some of these people around, but at the very least, I can see, her tolerance for this from other people as a bit of a moral failing on her part. But as far as, her own ethics go, like she does, um, she is one of the, most staunchly ethical people I've known. And, her own sense of what is right and what is just has been consistent the whole time I've known her. Um, and when on the rare occasion she's had to make an adjustment, she has owned up, for it. Um, so yeah, but yeah, like the difference between the reason Galena can weather these kind of accusations so much more easily than um than um than JC can is, first off, Galena is getting these accusations from within the pagan community for the most part. This is a very niche community of writers and bloggers and various other practitioners, and um, so when you have people threatening to call the school you work for and all that, they're gonna like like her employer is gonna take this with a grain of salt. These her employer is gonna take these accusations with a grain of salt at the most. Them their name when they're making these accusations. On the occasion she may have been, I don't remember if she's been doxxed in that manner, but yeah, she's she's able to weather this a bit more easily than JC can, because JC's profession, like I said, Galena, she's an academic, she's a professor, she's a writer. People are going to pay writers one way or another, whether they're directing traffic to their blog just to rip on them, and that still rakes in a little bit of AdSense rewards, or they're buying their books even just to disagree with them. One way or another, writers find a way to make money as long as they keep writing. And especially in this internet age, as a writer on the internet, you're doing something wrong. And I say this as somebody who's published 2 novels and a handful of articles in other pagan publications, and I'm still broke doing that. And I know I'm broke doing that because I know I can't make any money off of any of that because, I'm doing something wrong. I don't know exactly what it is I'm doing wrong, but, writers can get by, especially if their primary income is coming from another source. But writers will always get by. And like I said, especially because in Kalina's case, her primary income is coming from another source. JC, on the other hand, he works with his hands. He's a he's a metalsmith. He makes jewelry. Body piercing jewelry. He makes it all. He makes it all. Well, there's some stuff that he stocks from other people, or has stocked from other people. But like a lot of the basics, most of the basics, he makes it himself. But his bread and butter has been from piercing for 25 years. And when you work with people like personally like that, your livelihood is going to be a lot more volatile, and he knows that. He knows that, and he sees it, and I'm scared for him. I really am scared for him. I really am, and I don't know what to do. I want to help, but there's nothing I really can do about it. I've been going on nearly an hour and a half, and the only person who's tuned in and said anything to me about it so far is asked me about where I live, that I can smoke weed, which I've never done, like on camera or off. Well, I take that back. I've smoked weed a couple times, but just enough to know that it really doesn't do anything for me. But yeah, we're going into hour 20 something. So I guess I'm gonna wrap up now, and it is about 20 minutes to 10. What the shit? What time is it? Ugh, God. I'll call and see about that credit on the pizza that I'm gonna get, and probably retitle this or something. Anything to drive up some hits, Okay, so I know the old hashtag, the Twitter hashtag that was going around for a while of "I stand with JC." I mean, it's not really going anywhere anymore, but anything anymore. It's closed up permanently, and the fate of the shop is to be said at a later date. But I do know that there will be a piercing shop on Liberty Street in 2019, but it is not going to be run by JC. It is not going to be run by JC. It is, he's talked to his lawyer. He doesn't own it anymore, and but yeah, I do hope he is physically still around in 2019, because I am scared for him. And I hope when he moves, that he can find a niche for himself again. Because last night I saw a man not much older than myself who has been broken by this. And on one hand, like I said, if this were anybody else, I would see what a lot of people are saying and give the accusers the benefit of the doubt. On the other hand, this is a personal friend of mine, and so I understand the whole context and everything he has said that might give you pause. And sometimes he says things that are only technically true, because about some people, because technically some people, he knows that I've been learning a little bit of the Gaelic language. Unfortunately, one of the few things that that I'm able to consistently say on my own without looking it up in either past lessons or phrase books or whatever is ismathrom, which is I like, and then followed with whatever you like. On the other hand, in my kind of lifestyle, that is a phrase that comes up a lot. So, and not just on Facebook. And yeah, we were talking one time, about me learning Irish, and he's saying, "Oh, well, there's some people who would say, that's just nationalism, and that's just, white nationalism and racism." And I'm like, well, technically, that is true. There are some people who are, and this is what I said to the kids who came by with the Michigan Daily, that yeah, technically there are people, who at least fancy themselves left leaning, who would say that, any attempt at me to learn the Irish, language would be evidence of white nationalism. And on the other hand, I mean, you know, in Ireland, the language has a really mixed history. They do make some knowledge of the Irish language mandatory in schools. Though everything I've learned about the state of it in Ireland, it's like even people who support the Irish language find that the way that the state has um, um, organized learning it in schools has very mixed results. Um, but no, like technically, like it's due to colonialism that the Irish language has had dead in the 20th century because of falling into disuse. Um, it's also possible that may have been a little bit blown out of proportion. I know that there are no longer, at least as best as anybody can tell, there are no longer any monolingual Irish speakers anymore. The last one, there's a video of him from the 70s that was taken, and you can find it on YouTube. So he presumably died either later that decade or early in the 80s. But yeah, he is believed to have been the last monolingual Irish speaker. And yeah, you see like younger people who are very enthusiastic about this, and they're talking about their activism, and they get very enthusiastic about things, but they don't understand a whole lot of the intricacies and nuance of what they're talking about. So yeah, I do see people who say, I do occasionally see people who say that, oh, that's just white nationalism. That's why you want to learn that. I'm like, no, I want to learn that because, well, first off, my forename is from and yeah, I'm trans, and yes, I did legally change my name, but yeah, like technically, if my genitals had matched my soul after I was born, at the time I was born, and that's how I see being trans is it's an incongruity between the body and the soul. But neurologists do point to neurology that being transgender is very likely a neurodivergence, and there is evidence that backs this up. Nothing 100% conclusive in every case, but enough to say that it's leaning that way. It's just there's variations of evidence between cases a lot of times, but I get sidetracked. So yeah, like my name, and my father would have given it to me had I been born right. Was It's Ruadhán, Ruadhán, would have been after my well, my paternal grandfather's younger brother, who died in childhood from scarlet fever in the 1920s, which I people have said to me, "Wow, that's a very Irish story." I'm like, "Yeah, we don't have happy endings, because at the very least, life, it's got happiness and it's got sadness, and you never know which direction it's going to, and." At the end, everybody dies, and somebody's going to be sad about it. So, but yeah, so and this is the it wasn't an anglicized of Rowan. It was the Gaelic form. In fact, my surname. In fact, I kind of regret not going with the Gaelic form of my surname, but I think that's just because I've got it published on my books, as McElroy, but it was McGilroy. I see people saying, "Oh, McElroy." I'm like, no, no, it's McElroy because it was McGilroy. I think was the spelling that they used, though. Though it's arguable, RUA would have been proper. I'm actually surprised I didn't go back to a Gaelic form of McElroy. Yeah, I know how my name is pronounced, and it's not talking about, but they understand, the embryo of concepts, but they don't understand the fully formed concepts. And they get very enthusiastic about something that they just kind of barely understand at best. So yeah, he says a lot of things that are technically true, but again, you got to take it into context and you got to examine the technicalities. And I'm really saddened by the fact that this had to happen because, he's talked a lot on his on the modified world and Twitter and in person with me that he's always tried to understand where people are coming from, and sometimes he puts his foot in his mouth when he does that, but he tries to listen to people when they say their truth. And that brings me to the Carnaic philosophy that I learned when I was predominantly a Hellenist, as far as my practices go, as a pagan, is Aristippus the Elder believed that we are incorrigible in our experiences, meaning that nobody can really convince us that we're wrong about them. But one thing that we have to keep in mind when talking about our own experiences and trying to relate them to others is that we cannot know every possible factor to that experience that we did not directly contribute. And this was from the teachings of Aristippus the Elder. And I mean, that's the only real flaw I see in JC's method of, attempting to understand people and, taking their truth as they see it at face value, is that, on occasion, he will, oh dear. The numbers on my hands. I'm sorry, I'm just now getting this comment. So, this would be 1334. This would be a Ross Williams thing. And the other hand, it says Eros. But yeah, Aristippus the Elder. So yeah, JC, and Galena does this too sometimes, though she doesn't take people quite at their word as much as JC does. Is you can listen to people like Kavanaugh. I'm just using him as a quick example because I brought him up earlier, so he's a little bit closer to my frame of mind. Like, you can listen to people like Kavanaugh or whatnot, and think and if you take him at face value, first off, if you take his truth at face value, and if you listen to him, he's yeah, you could say he was just a kid who made a bad choice. At the same time, as an adult, when you step away from that and you look at, you can even look at the things that he directly contributed to that experience in, and he's clearly making shit up. And but yeah, like um at the same time, it's I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'm just scared, and I'm just so scared. Because I know in my heart that, you know, I, I know in my heart that JC is not the kind of person that people have made him out to be. And unfortunately, that benefit of the doubt has bitten him in the ass, and he's basically lost his livelihood because of it. And I hope he doesn't lose his life from it either, because some of the things he was saying last night, I, I saw a very I saw a very broken person, and I'm scared, and I don't want to lose another friend. I'm sorry.